This is Ryan with Stonefly Aquatic Nursery. This is episode 3 in our series, Aquatic Plants and Algae. If you haven't seen the first two, make sure you go check them out. There's some background info that might be helpful for this and later episodes. Episode 1 was an intro to the series, and episode 2 talked about algae. But today we're talking about floating plants. These are plants that are going to be floating on the surface of the water or just below it, duckweeds and the like. We've got a mix of natives and non-natives in here, and the reason why I want to talk about those non-natives is we've been asked for non-natives, and the majority of those non-native species are illegal to possess, transport, or sell. So we don't have them available, and to kind of shortly explain why the the many states spend a lot of time and money trying to control these species, because while they may seem beautiful or they look really cool, they grow really well in your little water garden in the backyard. In a lake, they can grow so aggressively that it prevents boat access, prevents light penetration, and causes a whole slew of problems for a lake's ecosystem, which is not helpful for anybody. But first, we're going to talk about Azolla or mosquito fern. This plant's really cool. It can be anywhere from green to a reddish maroon brown. It's we on site. We've got the whole color span that it can be in from box to box, and it's really cool to see the different colors from this plant. It's not very big. It's only going to be about an inch wide, and it'll have a root descending into the water column from the leaf base, and then the leaves themselves overlap and give a quilted or feathery look. But this is a really cool plant that we see on site relatively often. Next is Bladderwort, and this is an annual plant with yellow flowers, and it's going to be floating just right below the water column, or the surface of the water. I mean, in this picture on the left, it's growing in some white water lilies here on site. But one of the coolest things about this plant is that it has these little bladders that catch little microcrustaceans that, if you put that bladder under a microscope, you can see what that plant is eating, because those bladders act like a trap, somewhat similar to a Venus flytrap. So it's a pretty cool little plant. They can form dense mats, though, so it's something to keep an eye on if you see them. These next two are going to be duckweeds. Now, there are many, many species of duckweeds, so these are just the two more common ones that we're going to see or do see. First one being common duckweed. It's a native plant. It's very small, but it has a light green color to it. It can overtake ponds when there's not enough water movement, or they're not being maintained or managed. It can cause some problems, because they do tend to prefer calm waters, and they do often grow in dense colonies with a root extending from the leaf base. So if you look at this picture on the left, we have common duckweed compared to giant duckweed, and the giant duckweed is much, much larger. And we'll expand on that in the next uh, bit here. So giant duckweed is a non-native plant. It's much, much larger than regular duckweed or the common duckweed or any other duckweeds you're going to see. Um, it also will have a red to maroon color on the underside of that leaf. And also at the base of that leaf, you're going to have a reddish, purplish dot. Usually, it's not always there, but it's commonly there. These are also going to have multiple roots coming from the base of the leaf, whereas the common duckweed will typically only have one, but it can similarly grow dense mats over the surface of a water body. Watermeal is similar to the duckweeds, but it's much, 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 much smaller. So on this picture on the right, you can see those are a bunch of little watermeal leaves on somebody's pointer and middle finger. But it's also colonial, just like the duckweeds, and it's often found intermixed with other species. Now, our next round of plants are pretty much all non-natives, most of which are illegal to possess, kind of what we were referring to earlier. The first ones are the Salvinia. So this is common Salvinia. They have both the Salvinias have little hairs on them, and the common one has these open egg beaters. And you can see that in the left drawing. You have to look really closely to be able to see these, to differentiate between the common and the large or giant Salvinia. But they both grow in mats and kind of tend to cause the same problems of overtaking coves or lakes or water bodies. This giant Salvinia has the closed egg beater shape, which you can see in that left drawing. Very similar growth pattern to the common Salvinia, very similar look. Again, you have to look at those beaters to be able to tell the difference. And here on the left, on this left drawing, we have the common Salvinia with those open egg beaters. And then on the right, we have the giant Salvinia that has the closed egg beaters. Again, these are not illegal to possess or transport. Next is the beautiful water hyacinth. You know, it gives off this great flower, but it can overtake coves and lakes and ponds, very similar to the Salvinias. So it's another plant that's legal to own, possess, or transport. But the leaves are elliptical. They give off this nice showy purple flower, and it'll just float. They're super easy to grow, but that's part of the problem. They're super easy to grow. Water lettuce also can create these large mats. Their leaves are kind of lettuce shaped or looking, hence the name water lettuce. And they're able to produce via runners, which is not as often seen at least amongst the floating plants that we have talked about today. So that's actually going to round out and finish up our floating plants. And I know it was another quick one as far as going from species to species, but this hopefully is just another introduction into floating plants to help you figure out what you've got, give you a starting point to see what you're looking at. So if you like what we're doing, please hit the like button. If you could subscribe and check out our channel. If you have any questions, please let us know down in the comments. Thanks for watching.